For being here today as we convene this important hearing to discuss the state of our United States Air Force, its modernization efforts, and the challenges it faces in an increasingly complex security environment. First and foremost, I want to express my deep appreciation for the men and women of the Air Force whose dedication and service continue to ensure our nation's air superiority. Their commitment to excellence is nothing short of extraordinary. As chairman, I believe it is our responsibility to ensure that our airmen have the resources, training, and capabilities needed to maintain that leading edge. Today's discussion will address key areas including fleet modernization, emerging technologies, and strategic deterrence. I know the budget is not out, but I look forward to hearing the Air Force's priorities and any struggles we can help with. I want to focus on the critical role of the bomber and mobility platforms. Our bomber fleet remains a cornerstone of strategic deterrence, and modernization efforts must keep pace with evolving threats. Meanwhile, mobility platforms are the backbone of our operational effectiveness, allowing us to move personnel, equipment, and supplies with unmatched efficiency across the globe. The world is changing rapidly, and adversaries are invested heavily in advanced capabilities that threaten our national security. It is imperative that we remain ahead of those threats by strengthening our operational capabilities, enhancing cybersecurity measures, and fostering innovation within the defense industry. I look forward to hearing from our distinguished witnesses, engaging in thoughtful discussion, and working together to find solutions that ensure the continued strength of our Air Force. I'd like to in turn to turn it over to my friend, Ranking Member Courtney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the witnesses for being here today. Sometimes people think that this subcommittee is only focused on Navy issues, but the Projection Forces mission is definitely very central to the work that we do. And again, over the years of the programs we're going to discuss here today, we've been very active both in terms of authorization language as well as oversight of those programs. I will say I think it's unfortunate that this hearing is happening without an actual fiscal year 2026 budget request, which normally is the case when this hearing is held. And although HASC's reconciliation bill included funds for Projection Forces programs, the bill was not specifically tied to FY 2026 budget, but was rather framed in a 4-year timeline for obligation of funds and 8 years for actual expenditure or execution of those funds. I would note that both chairs of the House and Senate Armed Services Committee over the weekend criticized the so-called skinny budget document that came out in OMB's attempt to roll reconciliation into the total defense request in their characterization of it as a $1 trillion budget. As both Chairman Wicker and Rogers note, the actual 2026 baseline budget request is a cut when accounting for inflation. Just this morning, Mr. Rogers highlighted to Politico that pinning hopes on a defense boost via reconciliation is a risky bet. The best way to really handle this situation is just to make sure that the programs that we're going to discuss here today, like many other programs in the defense budget, are actually included in the baseline 2026 budget, and hopefully as NDAA kicks off and we get the full budget, that is going to be the outcome. And again, I would note that in the reconciliation bill, there many of the programs in Projection Forces were included, but again, with no timeline in terms of when they actually have to be executed. And that's not what our military needs right now. The need to get these platforms and these programs moving forward now in FY26, really, I think, is the reason why we really should heed the chair's concerns that they expressed over the weekend. Again, KC-46A has been a big topic over the years in terms of this subcommittee. And again, we want to find out what's the latest in terms of Boeing's upgrades, in terms of, again, the problems that they've been finally now sort of focused on fixing. Again, we also want to know about the modernization of B-52, the B-21 program's progress, and also Air Force One's delivery date for the two planes, which again was mentioned in the testimony today. So again, really appreciate the witnesses for being here, the chair for scheduling today's hearing, and with that I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Courtney. I'd like to introduce our witnesses today. Lieutenant General Dave Tabor, Deputy Chief of Staff for Plans and Programs, and Ms. Darlene Costello, the Acting Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Acquisition, Technology, and Logistics. Let me take a moment of personal privilege to confirm a rumor that we've heard. Ms. Costello, you're retiring.
I can confirm that, yes.
36 years as a career DoD civilian. We would like to congratulate you, thank you, Brian, your family, and of course Bridget, on a distinguished career and best wishes for the future. I understand that you are doing two separate openings. General Tabor, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chairman Kelly, Ranking Member Courtney, and distinguished members of the subcommittee. I appreciate you inviting us here today to provide testimony on the importance of the Department of the Air Force's bomber, tanker, and airlift programs and their crucial roles in the defense of our nation. For over 75 years, the nation has trusted the Air Force to deliver capable, credible combat power and unique national capabilities that cannot be duplicated in the joint force to deter and prevail against any threat to our homeland and our interests. Our citizens, the joint force, our allies, and our partners have long held faith in the Department of the Air Force's ability to rapidly project power across the globe. Our adversaries also have faith in our ability, but they are determined to erode the advantages of American air power. For the past 25 years, they have watched us and learned as we operated in relative permissive environments. They have identified perceived vulnerabilities, and they've invested technologies and capabilities they believe will overcome and negate our warfighting advantages. The fact that our adversaries doggedly pursue these aims demonstrates their respect for our competitive advantages. But the near surety of America's air and space forces dominating over any adversary has nevertheless become less certain and more qualified. Despite this challenge, the Air Force remains resolutely committed to meeting any challenge and defeating any foe that threatens the homeland. We are in an ongoing race to maintain technological superiority. Our adversaries know the joint force is dependent on strategic and tactical airlift to execute its wartime mission. We must mitigate the gains made by our adversaries through investments in survivable and sustainable tanker and airlift assets to ensure we continue to project American power well into the future. To that end, the Air Force will continue to pursue disruptive technologies, material advantages, survivable systems, and asymmetric capabilities to outpace potential adversaries while doggedly safeguarding our readiness responsibilities to the joint force. That means we must be ready both in the near and long term to project power, generate readiness, develop people, and develop capabilities that create dilemmas for adversaries while staying on the right side of the cost curve. We are grateful for the support we have received from Congress in pursuit of these objectives and appreciate the continued partnership as we build a modernized, flexible, connected, and survivable future force. To project power, the Air Force must both deploy and sustain its capabilities when and where our adversaries threaten America's interests. To prevent our adversaries from eroding our ability to project power, the Air Force must pursue medium and long-term modernization to maintain resilience, survivability, and lethality in the near term and beyond. The Air Force must have a force that can protect American interests and be capable of disabling our adversaries' ability to defend themselves. Maintaining outdated systems that can no longer meet this threshold criteria squanders taxpayer money as well as our airmen's time and talent. The Air Force must also generate readiness. This goes beyond a siloed resilience on a platform's functional readiness as a proxy for warfighting capability. Instead, our force design takes a comprehensive and integrated systems-level focus on mission readiness. Our power to deter adversaries comes from our continued demonstrated ability to deliver air power anytime, anywhere. Investments in foundational accounts improve this readiness, and their impact on the force's ability to deliver air power to the joint force cannot be overstated. In addition to generating readiness, the Air Force must also continue developing its people. Developing people means cultivating airmen ready for war who are proficient with the latest equipment and systems. We will increase lethality and functionality through technology, training, and development. The future fight will not be won simply by doing more of what we have been doing for the past 25 years. We have taken a hard look at where we have shortfalls, gaps, and vulnerabilities, as well as where our strengths lie to create an agile force design that can meet the threats of today and tomorrow. That also means we must continue to develop capabilities. The Air Force's fighter, bomber, tanker, and airlift programs create effects across the globe and the range of military operations that the Joint Force relies upon. The demand of global operations requires a critical mass of air refueling tankers and airlift platforms with connectivity, survivability, and agile capabilities, and mission-capable rates that meet combatant commander requirements. Our ability to achieve peace through strength requires a nuclear and conventional bomber force having a mix of penetrating and standoff capabilities that provides both lethality and sustainability against adversaries. Altogether, the Air Force will prioritize mission over function and systems over platforms to ensure that we continue to prove the right capabilities at the right time for the Joint Force. In closing, I want to thank you again for the opportunity to testify. I look forward to working with each of you to ensure the United States Air Force is equipped and prepared to meet our national security objectives. The Air Force is grateful for your steadfast leadership in helping us build the modernized, combat-ready force we need to meet the challenges presented by our adversaries. Thank you for your continued support of our airmen and their families.
Thank you, General Tabor. And Ms. Costello.
Chairman Kelly, Ranking Member Courtney, and distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you for having us here today to provide testimony on the Department of the Air Force's projection forces, aviation programs, and capabilities. The United States Air Force is critical to our national defense. The nation can no longer assume that future military operations will be conducted in uncontested airspace. Our adversaries also continue to innovate and aspire to exceed our capabilities, so we must continue to evolve how we acquire warfighting capability that will enhance lethality in a future conflict. It is important that we invest in technologically superior capabilities to outmatch our adversaries. We're continuing our gradual transition from the current 3-bomber fleet to a 2-bomber fleet of next-generation B-21s and modernized B-52s to provide nuclear and conventional global strike options. The B-21 program is flying, executing the flight test campaign and ground test campaign, and we are in low-rate initial production with lots 1 and 2. The B-52 is undergoing the largest bomber modernization effort in history. The commercial engine replacement program is actively undergoing performance testing to ensure our path to fielding stays on track for the early 2030s. We are working with our critical partners in the depot to ensure our installation process minimizes downtime of our airborne deterrent. The B-52 radar modernization program is currently modifying the first 2 test aircraft and will begin their testing campaign within the next year. We're working closely with Global Strike Command and our test partners to ensure our capabilities are phased to field as quickly as possible. We are also directly contracting with Raytheon to buy the radars, which will eliminate unnecessary additional cost. Other programs within the $20 billion B-52 modernization effort include communication suites, mission employment trainers, data links, crypto modernization, and other system improvements. Continuing to deliver refueling capability to the Joint Force is a priority for the Air Force. While our current tanker fleet remains effective, we are working to enhance the connectivity, survivability, and flexibility of the tanker fleet to meet needs in the future fight. The Air Force is still determining its acquisition strategy for recapitalizing the aging tanker fleet, but in the meantime, we are prioritizing KC-46A production and continuing to work with Boeing to resolve deficiencies. Since the discovery of cracks in the wing support structure, all 89 KC-46 aircraft have been inspected. Cracks were identified on 21 total aircraft, and all but 3 have since been repaired. The Program Office, Boeing, and Air Mobility Command have identified the root cause, and we have begun the process to resume deliveries from Boeing, and the first delivery is expected to resume next week. While we continue to modernize and sustain our C-5 and C-17 fleets, they are aging rapidly. The first step in the recapitalization of those fleets is to conduct the next generation airlift, called NGAL, capabilities-based assessment. That is set to complete later this summer and will help determine the most appropriate solutions to fulfill future airlift requirements. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify. We look forward to working with Congress, industry, and the communities that support us to ensure we maintain the necessary military advantage to secure our vital national interest and support our allies and partners. Thank you for your steadfast support and partnership as we deliver the needed capability for our Air Force. Thank you.
I thank the witnesses, and I now recognize myself for questions. Ms. Costello, this committee has been following the recapitalization of the KC-135, sometimes called the bridge tanker. Can you update us on the Air Force plan?
So we are absolutely committed to recapitalizing that fleet, and we're looking at all options in order to maintain a consistent recapitalization as the 135s go out of service. We are extending our KC-46, as we know from the 25 budget. We're going to take advantage of that pricing. We are also looking at what options are most affordable in the time between the completion of the KC-46 contract and what future capabilities we need going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And Lieutenant General Tabor, current law sets the minimum of total tankers at 466. Does that number seem adequate to you, especially given the age and nature of the current fleet, or would more tankers better help deliver the necessary results?
Chairman, I think that that question depends on kinds of where you sit. I think it is a sufficient number at the end of the day, but arguably you could make a case for more. You could also make a case for less. The reality is that we have never exceeded our capacity to provide tankers in our history. But you can certainly imagine scenarios where you could need more. So it's something that we're very watchful for. It is certainly a hard line number for us that we intend to maintain over the long term.
Thank you. And the last question I'll ask. As of last month, the B-52 radar modernization program has exceeded the significant threshold defined by the Nunn-McCurdy Amendment. Current estimates predict the program will not exceed the critical threshold. Given the challenge presented by our stagnating defense industrial base, Ms. Costello, how confident are you in this assessment and why?
I am pretty confident in this, which is why we have decided, to continue with the program. We believe we can find an affordable way forward to deliver the needed capability. We conducted an affordability review when we first got the information about the pricing coming in higher than we expected. We've refined the requirements down to a min viable product of what Global Strike really needs this to do as opposed to possibly other items. That doesn't mean we can't bring in capability later, but for now, we're focusing on getting this capability to the warfighter because it's needed. We don't believe it's going to be a critical Nunn-McCurdy. We don't believe we're close to having a critical Nunn-McCurdy, but we are beyond the significant threshold, and we're working through the process to inform the Congress of that.
And I just want to thank you one final time. Just thank you for your dedication to this nation and your service and your family's service to this nation. And we are a grateful nation to you. And with that, I recognize my friend, the ranking member, Joe Courtney.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, I want to join Trent in, again, congratulating you on, a big milestone in your life and look forward, wish you all the best in terms of, the next chapter in your life for you and your family. Again, you've been an amazing, consistent source of information for Congress, and that we really appreciate your work. Again, as I mentioned at the outset, the remote vision system with the KC-46 plane has been a project that, again, this subcommittee has participated in for a number of years. There's some reporting actually this week that the final sort of, completion of that work to, again, make, the folks who actually have to do the hard work of, locating and connecting the boom to the planes they're fueling is done safely. Is that story accurate that it's going to be another year delay in terms of completion?
So Boeing has provided an estimate, very
Man, I think your
I'm sorry.
microphone. Yep,
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Boeing did provide an estimated date very recently that we're in the process of looking at and working with Boeing of how to bring to the left. It did coincide with the end of FY27. There's some assumptions baked into it that we're not sure are exactly appropriate, and we're going to be looking at ways to bring that to the left. We have a fully demonstrated RVS system in the lab. We are installing it currently on the first aircraft. That started in April. The testing is planned to start later this year, and all of that will inform us of staying on track. But as far as the certification aspects, which are part of what contributed to the moving it to the right, we're looking at ways to bring that to the left, even possibly looking at changing the area where there's a FAA requirement and a military type cert. We're early in that stage, but we are focused, and I talk to Boeing weekly on this program and RVS specifically, and at the highest levels of Boeing, they're committed to bringing that to the left and working with their subcontractors, and I think that's where we are at this moment.
Thank you. In the meantime, some of those planes are flying, but in sort of more limited capacity. Is that correct?
Yes, we have capable aircraft out there. The KC-46 are great tankers, and when they get the full RVS 2.0, there'll be nothing that compares to it.
That's great. Thank you. General, after the tragic crash of the Ospreys off of the coast of Japan, again, they were grounded for quite a lengthy review period there. Can you just sort of give what the status is as far as the Air Force is concerned in terms of full operational activity?
Yes, sir. They're back flying now. In fact, I had a conversation with my friend, Lieutenant General Conley, the AFSOC commander, just very recently. He told me that he has confidence in the platform. He's out flying it. We are continuing to make improvements based on that accident investigation, or I should say safety investigation report. So there is still a lot of confidence in the platform.
All right, thank you. And lastly, in your testimony, joint testimony, there was a description of what's going on, what's the latest with Air Force One, the VC-25B new planes that were supposed to be delivered in 2024. What's the delivery date projection today?
The recent estimate that we've gotten from Boeing shows a significant improvement in that date. We are looking at the requirements that are being potentially traded off to get to that date, and so I would not necessarily guarantee that date, but they're proposing to bring it into 27. If we can come to agreement on the requirements changes that get us to that point, that may be possible. But we believe some of those requirements may still need to be. We're working with the White House on what's acceptable from a capability standpoint for those aircraft, and we'll refine the date accordingly.
Okay, and just so we're clear, so I mentioned the original date was 2024.
Right.
And then, so when you said they're moving the date to 2027, where you're moving it from some other date? So
Yeah,
maybe
2027 is an improvement over where Boeing was projecting that when they gave us their integrated schedule last winter.
So that would
and
be
they've
2020.
now moved it up by a year to 2 years in their projection. We've done a couple things on that program, actively working to improve the production and the design completion. There've been Boeing and our program team is working very closely with the White House to look at every single requirement and how it's being derived into the design and what it's introducing. We've also relieved some of the security requirements for production facility for a period of time. It will not be a permanent relief, but that has enabled Boeing to be more efficient and productive in assembling the aircraft and getting their mechanics to do the work. But we're down to a few remaining issues that we have to work through, and we will hope to close that in the very near future, and then we will have, I believe, a better estimate on the schedule.
Thank you. I yield back.
The gentleman yield back. I now recognize Dr. Jackson for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ranking Member Courtney, as well. Glad you guys had this hearing today. I'd like to thank our guests for being here today and providing valuable insight into the state of our current Air Force programs and capabilities. The Air Force plays a vital role in protecting U.S. interests both at home and abroad. As the proud representative from Texas' 13th Congressional District, the home to the great men and women of Shepherd Air Force Base, I know just how essential a strong Air Force is to our nation's defense. We must ensure that we fund the programs and capabilities necessary to deter, and if necessary, win against our adversaries. Our nation's ability to generate air power starts with our capacity to develop highly qualified and capable pilots. That is why our allies and partners are so eager to join us at the Euro-NATO jet pilot training program based at Shepherd Air Force Base. But this training cannot happen without aircraft. I am increasingly concerned about the repeated delays of the T-7 trainer and the impact this will have on our own force as well as our allies. Ms. Costello, where do we stand with the T-7 program today, and from your perspective, what can be done to accelerate the program timeline given the ongoing pilot training backlog and the shortage of qualified pilots?
T-7 program is absolutely a priority for us, and I would like to say that we highlight that we've made a lot of improvements working with Boeing since the beginning of this calendar year. At the most senior levels of Boeing, they've taken a strong interest in ways to improve, and we worked with our training community to make sure we are meeting AETC's IOC requirement of November 27. There are a few accomplishments since we've seen a better partnership between Boeing and the Air Force in this case and the test community. We've now resolved the known GBT ground-based training system requirements. We've resolved the stability concerns. We did that in March of this year, and now we're working towards delivery to Randolph by October of this year. With the recent qualification sled test on the egress system demonstrated optimal performance, so it's showing good progress. The T-7 sub-vendor Carbon returned to work and jig load, and that's targeted for August of this year. So we are pulling things to the left and showing continued progress towards flight test, and Milestone C is a priority in our.
And I know these are going to be rolled out in phases to different locations. Can you tell me, like, when do you expect that the pilots, the trainees at Shepherd Air Force Base will get them?
Well, we're targeting IOC in November of 27. I'll get back to you. I can happily get back to you with the exact dates of the locations.
Thank you. I'd much appreciate that. At the Air and Space Force Association Warfare Symposium earlier this year, Air Force Chief of Staff highlighted some of the alarming figures about the state of the Air Force inventory. In 1994, Air Force aircraft were 17 years old on average, and the aircraft availability rate, a metric shows whether the aircraft is available for its mission or not, was at 73%. In 2024, the average age has increased to 32 years, and the availability dropped to 54%. This sharp decline is simply unacceptable for most of us, and it has serious consequences for our readiness and our ability to deter our adversaries. General, from your perspective on the air staff, what do you see as the primary cause of this decline, and what is necessary to reverse this alarming trend?
Thank you. We're equally concerned about this trend. I think it's caused by a number of different things, some of which are the funding for weapon system sustainment across the board. We are doubling down on that, trying to get as much money into the appropriate weapon systems as we can to increase that rate. I think the number is also skewed by some of the older platforms that we have in mass. A good example of that are the B-52s, which are undoubtedly old aircraft, but still very valuable aircraft to the point of why we are upgrading those. And so that kind of tends to pull the age a little bit further right on the bell curve than anybody would like. I think another factor is the inability to bring on new aircraft at the rate that we would like to do it. And an example of that would be the F-35s, which we have not been able to onboard at the rate that we had expected to. So there's a number of different factors that go in there. We're trying to throw the levers on the ones that we control and trying to work with industry to fix the others.
Thank you, General. And I'm open for any suggestions for me as a member of this committee to help expedite that. Thank you. And with that, I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman kneels back. Ms. Elfreth, I understand you don't want to ask any questions, but we thank you for your participation and meeting earlier. So I now recognize Mr. Gooden for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General Tabor, how are tanker basing decisions being aligned with great power competition priorities, and will states like Texas be considered?
So there's a strategic basing process that the Air Force follows, and it takes into account a number of criteria, which includes mostly the ability of the bases to support the mission that's going in there, whether that's tankers or anything else. And we're trying to be extraordinarily transparent with that process to lay out exactly how we go through what the criteria is, what the grading scales reveal. So absolutely, bases, wherever they may be, will be equally considered until they're pulled off for one criteria or another.
And along that line, are we accounting for potential bomber force structure gaps as the B-1s at Dias are retired and the B-21 ramps up? And if you can say, will Dias remain a strategic hub in that transition?
So we are looking at the bomber force in total, and we're eager as anybody to get B-21s as soon as possible. So Dias, of course, with the B-1s will remain viable until we start putting B-21s there. I don't see anything happening in the immediate future to disrupt that.
Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize Mr. Moreland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman Kelly and Ranking Member Courtney. Thank you for holding this critical hearing discussing the Air Force power projection posture. General, first question for you. Given the Air Force emphasis on deterring China and sustaining long-range bomber and tanker capabilities, what role does Guam play in future operational planning and dispersal strategies, particularly under the agile combat employment?
So with your indulgence, sir, I mean, it gets rapidly into kind of sensitive information in terms of operational planning, but obviously Guam is central to everything that we do in the Pacific, not only now, but into the future. So we have a great interest in its long-term viability.
Thank you. Next question for you. With the upcoming REFOR-PAC exercise aiming to test Air Force rapid deployment and agile combat employment capabilities across the Pacific, how does the Air Force plan to leverage Guam's strategic position to enhance these operations? Specifically, what investments are being considered to ensure that Guam's infrastructure can support the scale and tempo of such large-scale exercise and potential real-world contingencies?
So REFOR-PAC is really an exercise that we hope is going to stress our entire force. I mean, that's kind of the design behind these exercises, to really put everything under tension and to see where there are faults. You rightfully point out that there are infrastructure issues in Guam, particularly as we still try to recover from the effects of Maewar. So we're eager to see where those fractures are, and to identify exactly where to place funding, which is not to say we're waiting on that to invest in Guam. We certainly are continuing to invest, but we do rely on the exercise to help expose some of the areas that may need a little bit more attention than others.
Appreciate that. I can tell your interest is there. Thank you. Ms. Costello, as the Air Force expands its presence and operations on Guam, what is being done to coordinate with local government and communities to ensure shared infrastructure such as power, water, and emergency service is resilient and not overburdened during the crisis or high-tempo operations?
Those efforts that you speak of are handled by a lot of our Air Force other offices. But our program office, of course, if they're working to put assets in that area, they'll be working with the communities. We always are reaching out to communities to make sure that we're aligned and understand where they might have issues and they understand our needs. So I would say that is what we're doing on a program standpoint. And then the larger Air Force will, of course, to support operations, be reaching out to do that too.
Thank you. Last question, General. Given the tyranny of distance and high operational tempo in the Indo-Pacific theater, commercial air refueling can play a critical role in extending range and persistence for both training and real-world operations. What steps is the Air Force taking to integrate commercial air refueling capabilities into the major exercises like we're talking about, the REFOR-PAC?
So there is a commercial air refueling contract that is let by the Navy that I know our operational entities have leveraged in the past to great effect. As a position in the Air Force, we are certainly not opposed to them leveraging that. That said, we are not actively funding additionally any commercial air refueling, as we are trying to put all of our money into future air refueling capability of the Air Force, but we have no fundamental opposition to it.
Thank you, appreciate that. And just on another note there, I know we have a change of command at our Anderson Air Force Base, and I was able to get on the phone with the colonel, welcoming him and looking forward to meeting him.
That's great. General Polinsky is a long-term friend of mine who's the outgoing commander there. I know he's done a wonderful job and hates to leave.
I appreciate that. Ma'am, congratulations on your retirement, and thank you for your service. General, thank you for your service. I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize Mr. Vindman for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the witnesses for coming in today. So I have 3 military installations in my district, but no Air Force installations. I do have Space Force, which is obviously, we're a joint team. Anyway, the Air Force has made plans to reoptimize for great power competition. Ms. Costello, can you describe to me any impacts to the Air Force's Air Force Projection Forces portfolio based on that?
What we were doing to optimize our force, our programs of record in the projection forces are completely aligned with where we're going. The alignment is really to better prepare ourselves for the fight that we have in the future. And so we prioritize our programs. The ones that we've talked about today, our tankers are really important, our bombers are very important. These are our airlift are critical for those operations. And so they are completely aligned with our optimization that was going on.
What about, can you talk a little bit about the manned-unmanned aspects of that?
Well, we're always looking for opportunities to leverage that. Most of our programs of record are manned programs in the aircraft, but we're always looking for opportunities as we go forward in the future to leverage autonomy, to leverage unmanned assets, and that will continue to be looked at every time we do an AOA or any sort of an assessment, and our labs are working on technology to assist in that area too.
And so as you're looking at that sort of manned-unmanned mix, how is your doctrine looking at that for the next fight, especially in the Pacific?
With your permission, I think I can answer that. This is a relatively new answer, or a new area for us to be exploring, and it's really taken the form of our work with collaborative combat aircraft and the experimental operations unit that we're doing exactly what you're getting at, Congressman, and exploring how do these manned-unmanned teaming events unfold, how do you employ them, what are the tactics, techniques, and procedures, as well as the ground support and logistics necessary to tie that together. It's brand new, so I mean, it's a rich environment for us to learn, but that is progressing at pace, again, aligned with the CCA work that we're doing.
And obviously, Ukraine is not a particularly like Air Force centric fight, but are there any lessons that you're taking from the use of unmanned systems and what the denied aerial environment?
Yeah, I think that the Air Force is very much interested in everything that's going on in and around Ukraine. I mean, I think that what they have done to rapidly incorporate lessons learned and turn those into technology that is on the scale of days and weeks, not months and years, is amazing. And it's really a model for how we would like to do things, how the entire DoD would like to do things. So very much at the forefront of our mind, what's going on there.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. Can you provide an update on the bomber roadmap?
So as Ms. Costello alluded to, B-21s are proceeding at pace. We're really proud of that program. Simultaneously, we're in the upgrade program for B-52s as they get new radar as well as new engines, and that will constitute our bomber force. That said, we're still providing upgrades to the B-1 and the B-2 in a number of different ways so they remain viable for the future, and we see that kind of seamlessly blending together to maintain the strategic capability as well as the conventional capability that the nation needs. I don't know if Ms. Costello has anything to add to that.
No, you described the roadmap very well.
Okay, thank you. So I got about 45 seconds, which is not a huge amount of time, but the SecDef has prioritized China as DoD's #1 pacing challenge and has called for the development of a new operational concepts, capabilities, and plans to bolster deterrence and maintain its competitive advantage. What can we expect to see in the rest of this year in FY 26, 27 in 22 seconds?
So it's premature to talk about what may come in 26, but I think it's safe to say that you can see a continuation of the things that we have been talking about already and the things that we had programmed in 25, specifically looking at infrastructure in the Indo-Pacific arena, as well as all of these upgrades to the tanker and bomber and airlift fleets.
Thank you both. I yield back.
Gentlemen's time's expired. Now recognize Mr. Higgins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Costello, my goodness, over 30 years in service. It occurs to me, good lady, that you must have begun at a very, very young age.
You are very kind.
And I am certain that your family looks forward to your constant presence. My mother used to say there's a good book in all of us if we'll sit down and write it. And I'm sure you have an interesting book to write. So thank you for your service, ma'am. I'm going to have a question for you both in a moment. But General, thank you, sir, for being here. My office was recently boots on the ground at Barksdale Air Force Base at the 2nd Bomb Wing. And we were very impressed with leadership and chain of command, what that team is doing to keep the B-52 flying is impressive, including a publicly announced flight from Barksdale to the edge of the East China Sea and then back to Louisiana. Those airmen are doing excellent work, and they, let me say respectfully, and this gets to my question to you, General, they're doing excellent work despite some significant challenges with facilities, the maintenance facilities. So let me just ask, can I be assured that the Air Force Command is aware of the facility challenges that those men are working around every day? No problem, but their chain of command should be aware and address their needs for facility enhancement and modernization. Can I be assured that you're on top of that, sir?
Yes, sir. We are absolutely on top of it, and it's not just at Barksdale Air Force Base. I mean, it's at many locations.
No, yes, sir.
And as I mentioned to Representative Jackson, I mean, we are dedicated not only to appropriately funding our weapon system sustainment, but to your point, the facility sustainment, restoration, and modernization funds that need to go into literally the foundation of our Air Force. I mean, it doesn't do any good to have magnificent aircraft and magnificent airmen out there if the foundation is literally crumbling. So it is very much at the top of our list of priorities, and we're getting after that.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that answer. And respectfully, we certainly are united on both sides of the aisle to assist with that effort. Let me shift to General and Ms. Costello, the question regarding the C-17. And as a workhorse aircraft of Air Mobility Command, the fleet was challenged after the evacuation of Afghanistan, and there's a great deal of discussion amongst my colleagues, especially on the House Armed Services Committee, but more broadly across Congress and indeed the nation regarding potential conflict in the Indo-Pacific theater. And of course, we endeavor to mitigate against that, and primarily by fielding indomitable projection of power. And we stand aligned, again, with that mission. With the C-17, should there be an Indo-Pacific conflict, well, certainly they would bear the brunt of transporting warfighters and men and equipment in and out of theater. And there's not a replacement that I'm aware of planned for the C-17. So I would ask you to address, if you could, what are the plans for dealing with the C-17?
I'll take it first, and I know that Ms. Costello has a little bit of this too, but sir, you're speaking our language. This is an issue. Fortunately, it's not an emergency issue for us right now, but it will become one if we don't act. And so to that end, we have started a capabilities-based assessment that we should be getting the report on this summer that will kind of guide us in terms of what the next generation of airlifter looks like. You're absolutely right. The C-17 is a workhorse. The C-5 as well. And I think people tend to believe that the C-17 is relatively new. The C-17 came into service before I came into service. I mean, it's a fairly old aircraft. It's doing great. And it still has many, many years in front of it.
Respectful of time, but we could expect a report this summer?
We will have the capabilities-based assessment report this summer. Yes, sir.
Thank you, General. Mr. Chairman, my time has expired, but I would ask indulgence to allow Ms. Costello to respond.
If she can take that for the record, the gentleman's time's expired. I now recognize Mr. Whitesides.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you both for being here. I'm proud to represent Plant 42 in Palmdale, California, where the most advanced strategic aircraft in the world is being developed and assembled, the B-21 Raider. As I discussed last month with the leaders of our strategic forces, the B-21 is distinctive not just for its capabilities, but for its on-time and under-budget performance. Today, I'd like to ask you just a couple questions. The first is, can you discuss how the lessons learned by the success of the B-21 acquisition arc and how those lessons might be applied to other DoD acquisition programs?
I'd be happy to. The B-21 program had a realistic schedule and a realistic budget when it was started, and the requirements have been stable and have not been changing. Those are three key elements for a successful program, and we've properly funded it along the way. That combined with having a very strong professional team managing it and a good partnership with industry has served that program well. We use the RCO construct that has been used for B-21 to look at other programs and see where we can get closer to that. And I'll even say in the executive order where we're looking at acquisition reform, it's held up as one of those models that we want to make sure that we are aligned with where possible. So those are the good practice in acquisition, and they're following that model, which is partly why they're working. So, thank you.
Congress is currently considering fiscal year 2026's Department of Defense budget, and just last week the White House released the so-called skinny budget. That proposal assumes the passage of some increased funding for the B-21 program. Ms. Costello or General, leaving aside some other challenges with the budget, what would the additional funding for the B-21 program enable the Air Force to do, and why is that important for our national security?
I'll start, if that's okay. I think that there are, as good as the program is, there are still little pockets of support where additional funding is needed. We're very eager to see exactly how that is broken out and where we'll have the flexibility to kind of plug some of those holes and potentially accelerate some of the long lead time items to ensure that things stay on track.
And I would say, while not necessarily what funding may be used for, that is a program that's also looking forward always to see what's coming around the corner and teeing up those requirements so we stay ahead of the need for when there's diminishing sources or we have long lead materials. So that's just another example of good acquisition.
Thank you both, and thank you, Ms. Costello, for your service to the country. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back. Now recognize the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Bergman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and based upon your testimony today and the questions asked, I would suggest to you, I was talking to the chairman, and we probably have an opportunity here at a future date to go into a classified setting to talk about surge readiness of your fleet, because we can do all the programming and planning we want, but if we don't have a surge capability, we may not be as ready as we need to be. So I appreciate you for thinking, entertaining that, Mr. Chairman, that we could do that in a future time.
We absolutely are. Already got it noted.
Great. So, General Tabor, as the Air Force continues to balance modernization with current operational demands, how are you accounting for the KC-46's ongoing deficiencies in your force planning and programming assumptions for meeting the tanker availability and readiness rates across the combatant commands? That sounds like a run-on sentence, but bottom line is, you know what I'm talking about. It's about how are you accounting for all this so there's a minimum of surprises?
Sir, you hit right at the heart of kind of what we deal with every day in my office, and that is the tension between modernization and sustainment of the capabilities that we currently have. The fortunate case for the tanker portfolio is that the KC-135, as old as it is still a very robust and capable aircraft. And so it's not threatening to quit on us. For sure, it's going to require continued care and feeding to get it through as long as we think it might be necessary to recap the entire fleet. But we're focused on the KC-46, resolving those conflicts and bringing those on as rapidly as possible, as Ms. Costello mentioned earlier.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Costello, again, everybody's congratulated you. Any concerns about the next steps?
Oh, of course.
Well, good. Let's go have a beer or a cup of coffee or something, whatever I do political therapy here on the side. So, but anyway, having survived the Pentagon, you definitely have a very bright future. So congratulations on all you've accomplished. Ms. Costello, the hearing memo notes that the B-52 radar modernization program exceeded the significant Nunn-McCurdy threshold in April with a unit cost of over 17%. What were the primary drivers of the breach, and how is the Air Force acquisition community mitigating further risk to ensure that this critical modernization effort stays on track?
There were a lot of things that contribute to a cost estimate, and the estimate that we had put together compared to the proposal that came in had different assumptions baked in that. So that contributed a lot to the growth. We have worked and done an affordability review where we looked at the requirements, we looked at the trade space, we created the minimum viable product that would be acceptable for Global Strike Command and the use of the platform with that radar on it, and therefore we've come down to what is a significant Nunn-McCurdy threshold number from the critical. That took a lot of work. It was requirements, people looking at what they can do, and also making sure we and industry understand the same version of what needs to be done in order to have confidence in those numbers that we're talking about.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Ms. Costello, acquisition reform remains a top priority for this committee. Based on your experience overseeing major Air Force programs, what specific reforms or authorities would you recommend to improve speed, accountability, and resilience in the acquisition process? Now, again, that's a lot of data there. If you'd prefer to take it for the record and give us a written response, that would be helpful, because then we can take that and deal with it. But if you'd like to make a top line comment here of a top one or two.
I definitely want to take it for the record because I could write a thesis on it, and I would love to provide my input. One thing that would be helpful, but it's complicated in how to implement it, is increase flexible funding. That doesn't mean a colorless pot of money, but ways to have more flexibility once the budget is set, or as we head towards the budget being set, so that we can execute within the paradigm that we're going to set for a program or a portfolio or however we're going to manage it. Sometimes the actions to move money take a long time. There's reasons for that, and they have to be well understood, but that's an area that I think is ripe for partnership and conversation.
Great. Again, thank you again for your decades of outstanding service, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Now recognize Mr. DeLuzio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Costello, I will add my congratulations. I'm a Navy guy, so I say fair winds and following seas. It's the proper send-off. Both you and General Costello, or General Tabor, excuse me, Ms. Costello, General Tabor, thank you. My district, proud to have the 171st Air Refueling Wing operating the KC-135, 911th operating C-17. Units are in the Guard and Reserve respectively. Of course, I think they're both really important assets to the Air Force's mission and what the country expects of the Air Force. Have some questions about the future plans for the Air Force, picking up on some of the back and forth with General Bergman on the KC-135. What are the plans for Guard units operating KC-135s? I understand, General, from your testimony, more broadly, the platform is expected to be around at least until 2050, but what can you tell me, and is there any distinction on the Guard side of things?
Thank you. There's no distinction in our eyes between a Guard unit, an active duty, and a reserve unit. I mean, generally speaking, KC-135s will be recapitalized in the near term by KC-46s, in the long term by something else. But the KC-135 has a lot of legs left in it, so I don't think that there's anything on the immediate horizon that impacts Pittsburgh.
So on the or something else or next generation air refueling system, what can you tell me? What does the Air Force think, and what kind of timeline are we talking about here?
I'll open up and then pass to Ms. Costello. We're in kind of the early stages, but I mean, the world's kind of our oyster, right? I mean, we're looking at an analysis of alternatives that could be anything from a large body air refueler, similar to things that we have right now, down to smaller types of, higher speed air refueling capabilities, or anything in between. So it's a big project to undertake and try to winnow that down into something that makes sense for warfighting. Ms. Costello.
I would add that we're also looking at capabilities that would make a difference as we go forward, that could be retrofit back on our existing tankers also, and the KC-46 that's going to be out there even longer than the 135s. Mm-hmm. So that's really important to make sure that the entire fleet has the capability that it needs as part of our future tanker force.
Thank you. But last note, and I mentioned the C-17s, the 911th in my unit or in my district operates. Report, I'm sure you know about some of the problems with contracting and some price gouging we saw on everything from soap dispensers to other components there. I'm very worried about that. I don't have a question, but I just remind all of us that this is a problem to protect the public money and to make sure that money is being spent wisely to give our airmen and everyone else who wears a uniform the stuff they need on time and on budget. And with that, I'll yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back. Now, Mr. Higgins, I will allow you your extra time with Ms. Costello before we close this hearing to re-ask the question so she will remember it.
Oh, you're very kind, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Costello, I was asking, I believe you had commented in your statement, but it's not in your written statement. What do you see for the C-17 replacement, C-5 replacement?
So we are conducting the capability-based assessment right now to look at all the things that we are needing to replace in the future and the timelines. When that is complete, that's the first step for starting any sort of a new effort and a program. So we're in the early stages. That's expected to be completed this year, and then we'll look at how to shape the solutions that are being teed up.
Thank you so kindly for that answer. Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Gentleman yields back. I thank the witnesses once again. I wish you the best, Ms. Costello, once again, and I thank you once again for your dedicated life of service to this great nation. And with that, this hearing is adjourned.